Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate changes to House Bill 2328. First, the total general fund spending, including the non-prefers, as amended by the Senate, is $29.099 billion. This is $4 million less than the bill that was passed by this House at $29.103 billion. Secondly, the CSRS pension costs have been added back to the administrative lines, totaling $45 million. The Attorney General's office has been increased by $5 million. The Department of Agriculture is increased by $1.1 million. In the Department of Education, $200 million is included in the Ready to Learn block grant line item. This includes the pre-existing $100 million in the accountability block grant line item, plus the $100 million in new education spending on our public schools. The House had included a $70 million increase in the basic education funding line item. That line item is level in the Senate amended bill at $5.53 billion. Pre-K counts is increased by $1.3 million over the House-passed budget to provide for a $10 million increase to this line item. The school employees' retirement is reduced by $64 million in that it assumed the Commonwealth will no longer pay charter schools directly for the school's employees' retirement cost. The community college line item is increased by $3.5 million, or 1.6% increase. When the bill left the House, this line item was level funded. $2 million is added to the Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology. In the Department of Health, there's a $2.75 million increase, including another $1 million for the community-based health care subsidy line item. Also a $1 million increase over the House-passed budget. In the Department of Public Welfare, various human service expansion initiatives have been increased in the Senate amendment. These include, in mental health, $1.2 million. Long-term care, managed care, $2.4 and in autism, $277,000. Services to persons with disabilities, $3.8 million, and attendant care of $675,000. In the long-term care appropriation, another $25 million is used from the lottery fund and $38 million from the tobacco settlement fund. Also, various special fund transfers have been added to this bill. And they include an additional $10 million from the Small Business First Fund, which brings the transfer up to $100 million. This fund provides low-interest loans for small businesses of 100 employees or less. The average of the loans over the last 3 years is $7 million. Average of $18 million in loan repayments per year over that same period. The projected ending balance of $102.8 million for the fiscal year 13-14. Another $10 million was being transferred from the Machinery and Equipment Loan Fund, bringing the total up to $100 million. This loan fund provides low-interest machinery and equipment financing for Pennsylvania businesses. And the average of these loans over the last 3 years is $9 million. An average of $25 million in loan repayments per year over the same period, projecting an ending balance this year of $129.1 million. They are the changes that the Senate made to House Bill 2328. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I stand before you tonight to ask for your support of House Bill 2328 as amended by the Senate. We are again on track to deliver to the governor the fourth on-time budget that increases funding to the Commonwealth's top priorities without raising taxes on Pennsylvania residents. Given the challenges, the circumstances we've had to confront this year, we can look at this budget and say that we went to great lengths to provide substantial resources for education and human services. Let me start by making sure that everyone is crystal clear about what this budget does for education. This budget dedicates a total of $10.5 billion to Pennsylvania school districts. This is the highest amount ever in our state's history and represents a year-over-year increase of $541 million. We maintain the current $100 million for the accountability block grant and add another $100 million for the governor's proposed Ready to Learn block grant. Through negotiations, we are also able to eliminate many of the restrictions of those new funds so our districts can freely use those funds for programs like full-day kindergarten. This budget also adds $20 million for special education funding. The first time since 2007 that special ed funding has been increased. Let me repeat that. We increased special education funding by $20 million, the first time since 2007. This budget includes a $10 million increase for pre-K counts for preschool programs. We have also added an additional $10 million to the Plan-Com program to help school districts over construction costs. This budget also provides a $432 million increase to cover the growing pension costs for our school employees to help Pennsylvania school districts meet growing pension obligations which burden our school districts. This is a substantial classroom cost. Every one of the superintendents of the school districts that I represent and I have met over the years have heard from point to increased pension costs as a major classroom expense that is straining this budget and theirs as well. We've heard them, we've answered their call. Let me just go over some facts regarding the pension. PSER's total contribution by the state this year, $1.3 billion. The year before, $951 million. The year before, 2012-13, $564 million. In 2011, the PSER's contribution by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was $364 million. In 2010-2011, the PSER's contribution by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was $297 million. In 2009 and 2010, $282 million. Now, I ask you, is this a strain on our general fund budget? Is this a strain on our school district's budget? Just since 2010-2011, it went from $297 million to $1.3 billion. I tell you, we have to address this. We heard from many of you out there, make the full contribution that Act 120 calls for. Well, Act 120 called for $1.3 billion, and that's what we're putting in. An increase from year to year of over $600 million. Please, when you're talking to your school board members, when you're talking to your public school employees, inform them of the amount of money their school districts are receiving to cover their pensions. We kept the promise. We kept the promise in this contribution. Human Services also is a top priority in this budget. The budget includes Healthy Pennsylvania proposal, which will provide expanded medical coverage to thousands of Pennsylvanians in a sustainable manner. Healthy Pennsylvania strengthens our social safety net and makes a commitment to the citizens of Pennsylvania that we will be able to honor in the years to come. Just remember, Pennsylvania is second in the nation in senior citizens. Second in the nation. We must have a sustainable program for them, and Healthy Pennsylvania will lead us to that sustainability. In addition to Healthy PA, this budget adds $123 million to the Department of Public Welfare, which includes $13 million to provide home and community services to the 1,250 new individuals on the waiting list for the services for those with intellectual disabilities and autism. Once again, this budget makes a record-setting commitment to these human services in Pennsylvania. This budget proposal also includes many other notable increases that are important to the citizens of the Commonwealth. Higher education is increased by nearly $10 million, with $5 million of that total going to the Ready to Succeed scholarship, proposed by the governor to help defray the cost of higher education for middle-income families across Pennsylvania. I'm sure many of you were interested in heritage parks in Pennsylvania. I've received over 75 requests from members. You'll be pleased to know you'll see a $500,000 increase. We include $15 million to train the 4 new state police classes, a total of 350 new state troopers on the street. Many of you on both sides of the aisles sent letters and emails for this request. In total, this budget sets education as the state's top spending priority. We make substantial investments in human services and expand care to the thousands of Pennsylvanians. We are able to do this despite the tough revenue and fiscal problems that this Commonwealth faced in this past year. Let me just talk a little bit about some of the difficulties that we had. Let's first start with the $340 million cut. The $340 million cut in the federal FMAP medical funds and $250 in increased state costs to implement the mandated Obamacare provisions. $250 million and $340 million. The reason why we receive less money from the federal government on FMAP is based on a per capita income calculation. But let me tell you something. We were decreased more than any other state in the nation based upon our per capita income. We are taking care of those services despite that loss of income from the federal government. I have not heard that mentioned too much, that we are receiving cuts and we are still taking care of the needy and their services that we provide. We overcame a tremendous loss of income that we received in the previous year. Now, I talked to many of you regarding this, and that's because of the federal fiscal cliff and the long-term capital gain tax increases in the year 2013, the 39.6% new federal tax rate that all Americans had to pay in 2013. Well, as a result of knowing these federal tax increases, many of our Pennsylvanians took advantage of the 2012 rates and sold their stock and sold their mutual funds in order to take advantage of that. What did this result? In less revenue for Pennsylvania. $600 million in the month of April, less than projections. $110 million less in the month of May. June started out slow, but the last 2 months started to pick up an additional $60 million. We overcame those problems. It is true that this budget includes many transfers from special funds to support the spending call for this budget. What you need to remember is that this is a good exercise. This is an exercise that our taxpayers expect of us. These funds had balances that exceeded their appropriations, sometimes by 1 or 2 years. What would you rather do? Have a transfer into the general fund, or would you rather increase taxes? Well, we chose to transfer those state tax dollars into the general fund to take care of those services. Now, let me just talk to you about, and I'm going to address this for some of the newer members, okay? Because this isn't the first time this was done. But based upon some of the comments that I have heard, you think this is the first time this was ever done in the history of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. In the fiscal year 2009-2010, under then Governor Ed Rendell, there was $60 million transferred from the Oil and Gas Lease Fund. $12 million transferred from the Machinery and Equipment Fund transfer, the same transfer that we're talking about tonight. From the Healthcare Cost Containment Fund transfer, $2.3 million. From the Tobacco Settlement Fund, a transfer of $152 million. The Rainy Day Fund, that was a good time when we had actually funds in the Rainy Day Fund. But the previous administration took out $755 million in 1 year. MCARE, Healthcare Provider Retention Account. They transferred $708 million. Another transfer from MCARE, $100 million. A total transfer in one fiscal year, $1.7 billion. They also had available that year $2.7 billion in federal stimulus for a total of $4.4 billion. How about the following year? Because I heard the chairman in the Rules Committee talk about next year. Well, here's what happened the following year after the previous administration took out $1.8 billion in transfer. They took out another $180 million in Oil and Gas and Lease Fund, $745,000 in the Budget Stabilization Reserve Fund, Emergency Medical Services and Operating Fund, they transferred $5 million. Highway Beautification Fund transfer, $800,000. Here's one that I've heard that we didn't touch this year. Keystone Recreation Park and Conservation Fund transfer. They took out $10 million. Enhanced Revenue Collection, $64 million. Tobacco Settlement Transfer, $121 million. For a total of almost $400 million. Federal stimulus money that year totaled $2.7 billion, a total of $3 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. As we go through this debate on this budget proposal, we need to be honest with ourselves and honest with our constituents. We face serious challenges in planning for this budget. We listened to the residents of Pennsylvania, and we heard them tell us to make education a priority, and we did. We are adding $541 million to education programs for a record $10.5 billion for pre-K to 12 education spending. And we are taking care of our school employees, Social Security, as well as their pension contributions. We also did this without raising taxes. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, please join me in supporting this budget and sending the governor for the 4th year in a row an on-time budget. Thank you very much, and I look forward to discussing this budget with Chairman Mark Kozik. Thank you very much.